All right, everybody, welcome in to Concrete Jungle, a Little League baseball podcast. Oh, I'm sorry, a New York baseball podcast. My mistake. I am Paul Russo. Kyle Evans alongside, man behind the keyboard, podcasting, producer extraordinaire across multiple plethoras of life, Nate Sharman. Appreciate his help as always. Boys, quite the weekend. First and foremost, I hope you all did something proper. I hope everybody who listens and watches did something proper and good for their mothers or their mother-like beings in their lives yesterday for Mother's Day. Also, before we get going, I know you're going to hate me for this, but before I forget, happy birthday tomorrow to you, Kyle.
Thank you.
Hope you're ready for the fun extravaganza that you have ahead for you. Any big plans?
No big plans, just probably working and watching sports.
Attaboy. That's the way to do it.
That's not a bad life.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, the name of the game the past pretty much week has been rain, right? I mean, everybody pretty much on the east, well, we'll call it the northeast, not truly, I guess, all the East Coast. But this is not just a New York problem the past week. It's been, like I said, northeast problem. Rain delaying games. Yankees who had an off day scheduled for today, not the case anymore. Both the Yankees and Mets had multiple games, 2 games, back-to-back days postponed due to weather. That's a little bit of a rare sight with that. That doesn't happen all too often. When it does, it becomes a logistical nightmare. Luckily, for the Mets case, you're playing Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, you go back there anyway. It's not that far of a trip. So they were able to get one postponed. I believe the makeup for the one is August 20th, but obviously yesterday they made up the one from, I guess technically Saturday would be the case there. But for the Yankees, obviously playing Texas, not the case. Had to get it in, and they're getting it done today, in addition to the doubleheader yesterday.
Yeah, it's really good that both teams had a mutual day off today, because if they didn't, I'm assuming that would be pushed back probably late September, I think, is when they meet in Texas.
Yeah.
Or October? Or?
Yeah, I mean, the Yankees would have to play, obviously, have a de facto home game at Globe Life for there. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously nothing over the weekend quite did it, but obviously, the minor league teams as well, with Syracuse and Rochester had a little bit of that issue, mainly Rochester. They had a doubleheader on Saturday that they played, but either way, it was a fun weekend. This was, I think, a really good weekend overall for baseball. A couple of different storylines kind of popped up throughout the weekend, and luckily for us, 2 main ones involved, one for each New York team. So let's jump right in. We'll start with the Yankees. Going to be a shorter overall talk, I guess, on them, only because they played the 2 games, but with the rain and name of game and one of the major headlines, we'll jump right in. So Sunday, game 1, really weird saying it that way because of how Friday and Saturday got postponed, but Sunday, game 1, 2-1 Yankee victory. Clay Holmes gets the win, John King the loss for the Rangers. It was a Garrett Cole day. He gets no decision, went 6 1/3, 5 hits, 1 earned, and 10 strikeouts. Giancarlo Stanton went 0-2, but had a sac fly early in the game. But Gleyber Torres, 2 for 4 and a walk-off home run, and this is where we had the exciting fireworks kind of take off for the game. So after game 1, the press scrum, Texas manager Chris Woodard busts out this quote: "That's an easy out in 99% of ballparks. He just happened to hit it in a Little League ballpark." Well, bad news for Chris, because of options like StatCast and stuff like that. We know that Gleyber's home run that traveled 369 feet would have been out at 26 of 30 ballparks in Major League Baseball. Tough scene for Chris. also aided in a Cole Calhoun home run earlier in the game that went much shorter and would have needed that anyway. So again, I guess it's our yearly, or I guess maybe a couple times a year, shtick where somebody comes in and says something about Yankee Stadium being, a little league park, or as Nate likes calling it, a Mickey Mouse park. But I don't think what people understand is, like, sure, down the line is shorter probably, but other than that, I mean, Yankee Stadium kind of tends to play a little bit deeper in most spots. I mean,
like normal dimensions.
right. I mean, in all honesty, the power alleys out in left and right center fields are really tough to hit it out of more times than not. And it's especially funny for me in this case coming from Texas, where they, one, play in a retractable roof, and two, if it is open, the hot air tends to lend itself to, let the ball carry a bit more. I don't necessarily, maybe, like I said, if it was down the line, then yeah, I mean, 318 and 314, yeah. But even then, in both scenarios, like, neither one of them are the shortest directly down the line in Major League Baseball.
Does everyone forget about the pesky pole?
Right. That was my next point.
I never really hear much about that.
Right. I mean, the Red Sox are shorter down the line. I think Pittsburgh is 315 along the wall in a couple spots there. I mean, up until this season, Baltimore and left field line was a shorter run.
It's almost, for me, is like a lot of Yankees fans were saying this on Twitter yesterday. They're playing the same ballpark. I didn't realize they moved the fence in for when Gleyber went.
Right.
It's at the end of the day, everyone's playing the same parameters for the game, so it's not a huge deal for me.
Right.
You can say all you want, like you said. We see this discussion
right.
At least once a baseball season about how Yankee Stadium gets the laurel of the short porch, right? But at the end of the day, they're playing the same field.
Right.
It's in the game.
And it went 369.
Right. That's another thing, too.
It wasn't a wall. I mean, it didn't go way over the wall, but it wasn't the first row.
No, I mean, that, like, where it was hit, I mean, it's going out in, all but 4 ballparks. And I think the 4, I know for sure the one it's not going out of, I think when I was able to deduct it, was San Fran. I think San Fran was one.
Yeah.
I think Oco was the other, and I want to say Arizona was maybe another one, but I mean, I can't remember what the third was, but I mean, that's just my quick deductions. I mean, of where it probably will not have gone out of. I mean, I don't know. It always kind of baffles me because the teams that kind of say it are, I mean, the Reds. It's funny because you don't hear Red Sox fans complain about it, right? Our quote unquote biggest rival. You never hear anybody within the division complain about it. It's weird. It tends to come from the AL West. I remember a couple of years ago, the Mariners faithful were the ones kind of banging the drum on that. Obviously Texas. I know Houston. I think that was their only comeback to us for a little bit. But it's funny to me, like I said. I mean, a lot of the teams that typically complain about it are ones that have retractable roofs, and 2, their climates allow for them with the air quality, or whatever you want to call it, with the air, allow for the ball to travel further anyway. So what difference does it make to you? And Nate, you bring up a really great point, right? At the end of the day, you had your 9 shots, or well, obviously 27, but you had your same amount of opportunity to do it. You're playing in the same park. And at the end of the day, look, I mean, if you want MLB stadiums to all have the same dimensions, fine. Like, I'd go ahead and do it. But, we went through it with some of the stadiums in the most notably mid-'70s through mid-'90s in these cookie-cutter stadiums where it was 330, 400, and 330 everywhere, and it just did not make for exciting baseball. What makes baseball unique in this sense, right, is different parks have different dimensions and different styles of play, pretty much.
All I know is whenever I play the show, I love playing on Polo Grounds.
You're an absolute psychopath. Okay, I guess we'll pop the trunk and do a mini history lesson here. Oddly enough, the Polo Grounds, Nate, home stadium for the Yankees for, I want to say it was, I know 2 for sure full seasons. I think a combined combo of like 6 when Yankee Stadium was originally being built. Yankee Stadium 1. But obviously, yeah, the Polo Grounds home, notably to the New York baseball giants. Then actually the Mets for the first couple seasons before Shea was built. And famous because it literally was built directly in a city block. So you had your dimensions, you had to deal with that. Down the lines, 295, and then center field was just technically, I think they ended up putting a marker on it at some point of like 550 something. But center field technically had no wall. So, I mean, as you can imagine, the dimensions are just absurd. So,
Yeah, the bottom line is Chris Woodward's a clown. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, what else do we have to really say about the situation? The guy's a clown. He's used to losing.
yeah, I mean, he's had a couple interesting quotes in the past about various things. I mean, he was the one, it always fascinates me with some of these people, right? He was kind of the one coach on the Dodgers when he was part of the bridge coach that was on both Mattingly and Dave Roberts' staffs. He kills me because he was part of the very much so no fun in baseball until Roberts became the manager, and then was all right. And look, I mean, Woodward's been around baseball. I mean, he's a baseball guy. He played about a decade in the major leagues. He played time in Syracuse even when they were with Toronto and had an affiliation with Toronto. I've never exactly had a true beef with him. I mean, I think part of it too is, and obviously this is getting into a different podcast for a different day, but this is a Texas team where they do have expectation on this year, and they frankly have not done well. I didn't expect them to. I mean, they just don't have pitching, but that offense has also struggled. I mean, you got they sent down, who was it, Santana? I think it was, or Calhoun, Willie Calhoun. It was Willie Calhoun, actually. And you're one of your best hitters, and now he demands a trade, and you're kind of wondering why he'd be upset. So I think you got bigger issues to worry about in Texas than field dimensions of a spot you only play one series a year.
Yeah, and one last thing quickly. Woodward actually tried to get the manager job, the Yankees manager job, before the Aaron Boone hire. Mm-hmm. So he was willing to go play in a Little League ballpark or manage in a Little League ballpark then, or as Nate says, a Mickey Mouse ballpark. So yeah, but now it's totally different.
We were just beating up on Nate for that.
Got to have the contrarian voice on the podcast, though. That's for sure.
You're the voice from the great beyond. Okay, let's head into the second game of the doubleheader yesterday, Sunday 2, Texas, a 4-2 victory there. Garrett Richards picks up the win. Michael King actually picks up his first loss on the year out of the pen for the Yankees. Joe Barlow picks up the save there. Again, poor Jordan Montgomery. No decisions, 6 innings pitched, 4 hits, 205 strikeouts. By far one of my favorite stat lines of the year that we've had so far. Aaron Hicks goes 0 for 1, but has 3 walks, 2 stolen bases, and a run scored. And then Stanton 1 for 4 with a home run and 2 RBIs. So, again, what does Jordan Montgomery do? What baseball gods did he piss off to just not get run support?
Yeah, honestly, the Yankees are lucky to get a split. I mean, if you look, they scored 4 runs on 8 hits over 18 innings of baseball. I mean, normally that's not really good, but luckily the pitching has carried them and continues to carry them when the offense is, not clicking. And I honestly think that the day off and then the 2 rainouts kind of, destroyed the momentum that they kind of had on the offensive side of the ball. So I think it's going to take a little more time now to kind of get back to where they were. But yeah, they're very lucky to split.
Yeah, it's weird. The doubleheader kind of did give the vibe of the Yankees like 3 weeks ago, really at the start of the season, where we're kind of wondering, why is the sky falling?
Yeah,
admittedly. George making a guest appearance apparently. What's nice here is what lies ahead for them is nice. Obviously, they have the Texas makeup today, and it's against a pitcher that is kind of set up perfectly for a nice bounce back day. To be fair,
and John Gray should get rocked,
right?
But
and then the 2 games set against Toronto tomorrow and Wednesday. So, but you mentioned today's starter 105 start on yes. John Gray 0-1 on the year, a 7.50 ERA. Kind of was hoping Texas was kind of hoping he'd be their ace this year. Interesting strategy. Trusting John Gray. He's going up against Nasty Nestor Cortez, 1-1, 1.82. So, again, another pitcher where the Yankees kind of struggle to give run support to. So it'll be interesting. But like you mentioned, I mean, this is a very good pitcher to kind of a nice bounce back offensive day. The 2 games set against Toronto, both games on Yes Network. Tuesday, tomorrow night, a 7:05 start. UC Kikuchi, who the Yankees handed his first loss of the year to, or no, he got the win actually, I think, against them. Yeah. So he's 1-1 on the year, 4.35 ERA against Luis Severino tomorrow, 2-0, 3.75 ERA. And then Wednesday, extreme what I call getaway game, 12:35 start on Yes. Jose Barrios taking this toe for Toronto, 2-1 on the year, 5.34 ERA against Jameson Taillon, 2-1, 2.84 ERA for the Yankees. I mean, it's weird, like, because these 2 game sets always kind of throw me for a loop, only because, they pop up a couple times, 2-3 times a year, just the way the schedule tends to shake out. And it's tough for me, for teams to kind of have an exact flow. Now, if there's a positive anything in this, today was supposed to be an off day for them, but because obviously you have to make up a Texas in, it kind of gives the vibe of maybe a truer vibe of a 3-game set to get the week going for the Yankees.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, and I honestly think they're going to win today. But if they didn't, I think the Yankees did a really good job with pushing Severino back, so Toronto's not so they're not putting the same pitcher on the mound against Toronto. They're getting different guys in there. That's kind of why they pushed him back. And Jose Barrios, I mean, he's really struggled. So I think there's a good chance, at least 1-1. If not, they take both games. But yeah, I think they got their schedule coming up is pretty, I would call easy. They got 4 games with Baltimore next week. So yeah, they could really get back on a roll.
Yeah, I mean, Baltimore is the tough one because their bullpen still is ranking fairly high within the top 10 ranks of MLB and some certain stuff. Not that I wouldn't know for fantasy purposes, but this is a nice little stretch for the Yankees here. Kind of, because now they enter the stretch of 20. Starting today, it's 22 games in 21 days or something like that, or starting yesterday, I think technically was 22 and 21. So obviously easier matchups will lend yourself to kind of, maybe, giving certain guys rest when they need rest as opposed to maybe not. So it will be nice. I'm with you. I'm going to look at it from a combined 3-game perspective. I think 2-1. I think they definitely get the win today. I think they drop one of those Toronto games. I don't know really which one. I think it depends. I think it depends which Kikuchi goes, which Kikuchi you get tomorrow, and then which Barrios you get Wednesday. We know what both of them can do. Both good pitchers who go about games differently. Kikuchi definitely more crafty. Barrios relies more on his hard stuff. Both guys who has struggled out of the gate, actually struggled really since All-Star break last year on, if you really want to look at it. So, but, that being said, Kikuchi looked really good against the Yankees last time out overall. Barrios, as you mentioned, right, off to a bit of a rougher start, but his past couple of starts have been more quality than his previous couple that he'd had to start the year. So he's kind of starting to turn. Where the game gets interesting, I think, against Toronto are the bullpens. Toronto's bullpen is not great, to put it bluntly. That being said, the Yankees bullpen, I wouldn't say they've been getting taxed the past few days, but it's been, Chapman hasn't gotten a good run in a while. That's not saying he hasn't pitched well. He literally just has not pitched in a while at this point. We're looking at, I think, about a week since he last threw. Obviously, that being said, he's probably tossed everything, but in-game situation-wise, he hasn't thrown. And, the Yankees, excuse me, have been relying on pretty much their usual guys out of the pen, Clay Holmes, Michael King, etc.
Yeah, and Toronto's actually struggling. I mean, they lost 2 of 3 to the Yankees, and then they just lost a series in Cleveland.
Yeah.
3 out of 4. So,
Pesky Guardian team.
Yeah.
Pesky Guardian.
and as you mentioned, their bullpen actually blew the lead late.
Right.
So,
They did yesterday, yeah.
yep.
I think Merriweather was, again, the guy who responsible for that. So, all right, let's move on to the New York baseball Mets, sitting 20-10 in first the NL East. Both teams still first by themselves, atop each division. Mets first at 20 wins in the MLB officially. So, no game Friday or Saturday for the Mets, obviously with the rainouts, but Thursday they had an 8-7 win. Medina picked up the win. Corey Knebel lost, and Diaz got the save. But they had themselves a historic comeback in the ninth inning as they batted around, played at 7. Just an incredible ninth inning for them. Your main producers on offense from the Mets on Thursday were Starling Marte, 3 for 5 home run and a double. Lindor had a home run, and Alonso went 2 for 4 with a double. But that Met offense, if there was ever an encapsulation for what they can do and what they have been doing, was that ninth inning.
Yeah, that was a very impressive comeback. But at the same time, if there was a team in this league that would allow that many runs in an inning, I think it would be the Phillies.
Yeah.
Their history with their bullpen
Well,
the last few years has been rough.
it's funny you mentioned that because I was texting with a buddy during that game, and after the game, he goes, how do the Phillies do it? I jokingly say, Hector Neris can leave Philadelphia, but he can never truly take the Hector Neris out of Philadelphia.
That's a good point.
So,
I bet on the Mets on Thursday.
and
I had some stuff going on, and I saw they were down.
Right.
They must have been down, 8 nothing, and early in the 5th inning or
yeah,
so.
they were
when I
down.
checked.
They were down. I think it was 6-1. I think going into the 7th or 8th or something like
And then it
that.
ended up being 7-1.
Yeah.
And then I forgot to look at it that night. I just had some stuff going on. I woke up in the morning, and I was talking to Josh Durso, who's a Mets fan. I said, "Well, they won," and I went and watched the highlights, and I was stunned.
Yeah. That game was one of those. Obviously, you mentioned you bet those. That's one of those you really wish you had them on the live line at plus 1200 or something, like it was at one point.
Yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda, right, Paul?
Well, that's the story of gambling. Yeah, I mean, just incredible. And it's weird because Corey Knebel has kind of corrected himself. Had a great year with Milwaukee a few years ago. Struggled. They more or less trade him away to the Dodgers to more or less create free space, and free agency kind of plays a part there. Resurrects his career with the Dodgers, gets this deal with Philly, and he's now had a few blown saves. So you mentioned a point with that, Kyle, that Philly, this is a team that kind of has these aspirations to be a little bit better, and the Mets have been able to stymie them away a little bit at the start of the year. I obviously mentioned nothing Friday. Friday's game now gets moved to being made up August 20th. Saturday's game becomes game 2 of the doubleheader yesterday on Sunday. Game 1, the Phillies take a 3-2 win. Kyle Gibson picked up the win there. Max Scherzer, his first loss in 343 days.
That's a great stat. I did not know that. It's been that many days.
Yep. Have to go back a pretty much legit full calendar year since his last loss. So he's now 4-1 on the year, still a respectable, really respectable 2.92 ERA. And the infamous Corey Knebel picked up the save for Philadelphia.
Yeah, he bounced back.
Scherzer went 6 innings, gave up 10 hits, 3 earned, and 7 strikeouts. Brendan Nimmo, 2 for 3, a walk and a run. Starling Marte, 2 for 3, and a run for them. Just a tough, more or less what I'm calling a tough day for the offense, at least in game 1 anyway. Kind of felt like they kind of struggled having pretty much 2 full days off in that sense. But if there's ever a positive, obviously Marte stays hot, and it was good to see Nimmo kind of have these at-bats again where, he goes deep, able to pick up a couple hits and a walk, have good at-bats. Not to say he's completely fallen off, but he's kind of taken a back seat since coming back from the COVID IL list pretty much 10 days ago.
Yeah, they kind of were in a similar situation as the Yankees. A couple days off, might have kind of hurt the momentum with the offense, but I mean, they still scored 6 runs in a game too, and a split's a split. So
Yeah, the split portion of it, 6-1 victory for Game 2. Chris Bassett picked up the win, his 4th on the year, moves to 4-2, 2.45 ERA. Christopher Sanchez picks up his loss for the Phillies. ERA goes up to 5.84 for him. Chris Bassett, 5 2/3, 5 hits, an earned run, and 4 strikeouts. Again, very good line for him. One of his shorter outings on the year, actually, though. Fun fact. Pete Alonso, 3 for 5, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and 2 runs. Tomas Nido, 2 for 4 with a double. But pretty much all the offense coming from Pete Alonso's bat, generating all but 1 run and 2 home runs. So keep mentioning, the Polar Bears kind of bouncing back nicely here. Kind of remained quiet through the series for the most part. Excuse me. In the week prior, but nice Sunday for the Bear. The Mets. The NL East, excuse me, has been an interesting division so far. Kind of we thought would be the bloodbath-ish, division in a sense. To me, looking at the start of the year, I saw cases for all the teams at one point kind of having a run. But the Mets appear to be really the only super good team out of that division right now. The Braves are taking a corner now, finally. Obviously, they're very good. What's interesting is the Marlins. The Marlins are showing a lot of leg. I don't think they'll be able to keep it up. I think the Marlins are a very good team for the future. I obviously, again, a different case, a different podcast for a different day, but they are a very good team kind of on the rise. But I think the Mets' hot start to really put them in the catbird seat at this point that allows them to control their own destiny to the point that I can't say that about the Yankees. I can't say about the Angels out west or really any of these other teams in the rest of the league.
yeah, I think the Mets are honestly, I think they're going to run away with it by midsummer. I think they're going to have a pretty sizable lead in the division. I just don't think these other teams are just good enough to, go off and win, 5 to 10 games in a row. They don't have the consistency. The Braves really aren't the same team. I know it's early yet, but you can just the way it feels, they're just not the same team. I know they got off to a slow start last year, and we're still able to win a World Series, but I just don't see that this year. And I think the Mets eventually will just run away with it. But
right. Yeah. I mean, it like I said, I think just the hot start they had, they've only dropped 1 series all year. And look, in baseball and the MLB, we always, the mantra is take 2 or 3 and you'll be fine every time. And that's pretty much what the Mets have been doing, right? I mean, quite literally, 20-10, that's 2 out of every 3.
Here's a crazy fact. 2 of their 10 losses this season were without Buck Showalter. Just a weird fact I wanted to throw in there.
Well, we've mentioned before, though, about his influence on this team. So
really maybe they could only have 8 losses right now. But yeah, Buck Showalter seems to really be getting his guys to play really good baseball.
All right, let's move on to what's ahead for them. Off today, a major travel day as they move down I-95 to get to Washington, D.C. Tuesday for Thursday, they'll be in the nation's capital taking on the Nationals. All the games on SNY. All the pitchers for the Mets are technically to be announced. The rainouts really kind of threw them for a loop. I am anticipating you'll probably see Ty Walker either tomorrow or Wednesday. Whichever day he doesn't throw, I'd assume Megill kind of gets the nod if he's all right and good to go. If not, I'm guessing you'll probably see Peterson in there at some point. Thursday, I feel confident in probably saying that's going to be Max Scherzer. But either way, they're TBAs across the board until they get formally announced. Tuesday, they'll face Patrick Corbin, 0 for 5, a big 7.16 ERA for the Nationals. On Wednesday, at 7:05, they'll see Aaron Sanchez, 1-2. Again, 8.56 ERA there. And then Thursday, getaway day, a 105 start. They'll face Yohan Andon, who they've already seen once on the year. He's 1-5 on the year, 6.99 ERA. So they'll be seeing pitchers who and a pitching staff collectively who give up a lot of runs. Plays right into the hand of this Mets offense.
Yeah, this is going to be an easy sweep in my mind. I can tell you Tuesday is definitely a win. Patrick Corbin just doesn't have it anymore. Yeah, easy sweep with Nationals just going to be at the bottom.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm with you. Presumable sweep. I feel confident in that too. So, all right, let's wrap up and move on to our local teams here on the Thruway. The Rochester Red Wings take the series against Scranton-Wilkes Barre. Red Wings now moved to 18-12 on the year, tied first in the International League. Thursday, they picked up a 2-0 win. Luis Garcia had a triple and a home run. Jake Noel also picked up a sacrifice RBI. Friday, the lone loss out of the weekend slate for them, an 8-7 loss. Offensive game that had no home runs. Luis Garcia went 2 for 4. Joey Meneses went 4 for 5 with a couple doubles. Nate's favorite player, Nicky Two Bags Banks, 2 for 4 with a couple runs and a walk. And Trace Barea had a big clutch RBI single to tie it up in the 8th inning. So, or no, that was the 9th inning. That was an extra inning game. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was the 10th,
we went to
right?
that game.
It was the 10th, yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead, Nate. Nate has a fun stat for us with that. So
The fact that they're the first place team
fun stat
in the IL
Yeah.
East.
Tied for first.
And yeah, tied for first, excuse me. We've been there twice and have yet to see a victory.
Yeah. So
But we'll go again.
Wow.
yeah. What can you do? Saturday, game 1, the makeup for Wednesday's game. 9-2, Rochester win. Jose Palacios, 2 for 4 with a double. Luis Garcia again, 0 for 1, 2 RBIs, but 2 walks. Joey Meneses hit a home run. Game 2, bit tighter. Rochester taking a 7-6 victory, though. There, Rodriguez 2 for 3. Andrew Stevenson, the most American name ever in baseball history, went 1 for 4 with a stolen bag and a double. Trace Barea, 1 for 3 with a couple RBIs. Joey Meneses, 2 for 4 RBI, walk, run. Then 2-1 victory yesterday for the Red Wings. Stevenson, 2 for 3 with an RBI. Meneses, 2 for 4. And Garcia, 1 for 3. This is the best start that Rochester's had since 2007. They finished runner-up in the International League that year. And interesting to note, on that team was Matthew Lecroy. It was his last year as a professional player that year, and he played for Rochester that year when they were affiliated with the Twins. Yeah, that team also had the likes of Ken Harvey, Lou Ford. I'm dating myself with these names, but Tommy Watkins was on that team. So this Rochester team's pretty good. I think, again, the only thing that sits in the back of my mind with this team at this point is, with the Nationals being as bad as they are, is that core going to be there enough all year? Garcia's still tearing it up. Stevenson got sent back down. That's why he's with Rochester. He'd been up with Washington. I mean, Lucius Fox even came back down towards the end of the week last week. It's a tough. I don't want to get my hopes up too high because, like I mentioned, like we've mentioned in the past here, with Washington being as bad as they are, you're more than likely to see these younger guys end up getting shots at the big league level at some point, which selfishly for us would suck, because this, like I said, this is the best team that Rochester's had in over a decade statistically. They're now sitting above 500 for the longest time that they've had in a number of years, and it's a fun team to watch. At the end of the day, this is a fun team to watch. Luis Garcia is such a fun player to watch, and he's justifying it and backing up by doing it, right? Nicky Two Bags Banks is a very good player to watch. He's flown under the radar. A guy that we didn't mention through all the series, but has had a fantastic start of the year, Donovan Casey. I mean, obviously, Cade Valley's there as well. Trace Barea is pretty much the Nationals' really, I guess, third backup catcher in line.
Cade Cavalli did a nice job battling on Friday night.
He only really had that one bad inning.
Yeah, he gave up runs in the first and the second, but he battled through.
Yeah.
Probably got through 5 or even parts of the 6 maybe.
Yeah, he's good. He's struggling. I think part of it's mentally with him.
Yep.
He probably should have broken camp with the Nationals. I think they're kind of fiddling with his service time a little bit. But that's part of what I said to go back to. I mean, you have to keep an eye on this nucleus. It's a good nucleus. This is a competitive team. But if the Nationals start bringing these guys up because they're doing bad, obviously, at the parent club level, then it's kind of all for naught, unfortunately. But if there is a positive in that, this is a great indictment of how the coaching staff is. Matt Lecroy is a really great baseline. He is a baseball lifer. He was a mostly backup catcher for his career. But that being said, the guys he was around in Minnesota, he played the bulk of his career in Minnesota, had a couple of years with the Nationals. But, playing-wise, he was around guys like Joe Mauer and Torrey Hunter, and in my mind, the most underrated manager of our generation, or at least my generation, Ron Gardenhire. I mean, he was around just baseball people. And so I think it translates really well to a club like this Rochester team who is fairly young, but super talented and super competitive.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Red Wings are in a really good spot. It's crazy that they were kind of at the same record with the Syracuse Mets for a little bit to start the year, because they are not the same team by any means. A lot better than Syracuse, although Syracuse, they continue to hit the ball sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but we'll get into that next.
Yeah, we'll touch on that in a second.
But yeah, a really good start. I'm interested to see how they will do this week. I'm not sure how good are the Red Sox.
Yeah, so they're in Worcester this week to face the Who Sox. This was a team that the Who Sox were the best team going in a couple weeks ago in the International League, just period, let alone the IL East. Since then, the Red Sox had to call a couple people up because they went to Toronto. They had a couple players, obviously, that couldn't go because they aren't vaccinated. Since then, because of the call-ups and shuffling around that they've had to do, they're pretty much hovering at 500. I mean, during that week, that was the week that the Syracuse Mets absolutely just trounced them. So they got talent there. I know Rob Refschneider's back down. Frankie Cordero stayed up with Boston at this point, which is interesting to note. And I know Boston actually has left a couple pitchers up as well that got brought up during that as well. So
they should win that series then.
I'd imagine so. I think worst case scenario is 3-4 against them. But yeah, or 3-3 against them rather. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a good deal for them. Syracuse Mets 10-19, tied for 9th in the International League. Rough series, admittedly, overall. Thursday they lost 14-2 to Lehigh Valley. Lost Friday 6-2. Saturday lost 4-1, but thundered back pretty good on yesterday to win 11-4. Again, we mentioned this. This is a team that offensively is really finding its footing. Wyatt Young, who started the year down in Binghamton, came up quickly to Syracuse. He's leading the team with a .352 average. He's actually the K-man that we saw, Nate, a couple weeks ago. Yep. Daniel Palka really being the power behind this team, leading them in runs with 16, home runs with 8, and RBIs with 22. Pitching's just an absolute mess. I mean, Mike Montgomery is the team leader in ERA, but his ERA is above 5.5. If there's any consolation, though, they have found their closer in Colin Holderman. He appears to have that kind of locked down for the time being. Lengthy, he's a big guy. He's a lanky guy, a bit intimidating out on the mound, to be honest with you, if you're a batter. He hasn't had a ton of appearances to really show himself, but he appears to be the guy that they're going to kind of entrust with, that Coach Manager Bowles is going to trust here to be that guy coming out for the 9th inning. So pitching's a tough spot for him. This is something that we talked about from the jump of the podcast with them, and it's tough because obviously the parent club, the New York Mets, are doing obviously really well, but usually decisions like this are easier when the team behind them in the pipeline's not doing good. But the Binghamton Rebel Ponies, the Double-A team, is doing extremely well as well. So the SMets are kind of trapped on this island at this point, pretty much.
Yeah, the story with Syracuse is if they're going to win a game, they got to score a lot of runs, and they did just that yesterday afternoon. And look, they won a game.
So yeah, I mean, it's tough because, like I said, there clearly are pieces there now that they've gotten more or less back on track. Just that obviously the pitching is just going to drag them down all year, which is tough. I mean, who knows what might happen, right? I mean, you don't know. Say trades happen, certain guys get DFA'd. Who knows what might happen, right? I mean, Mike Montgomery's kind of in a spot where, in theory, he can elect free agency if he wants. He has enough MLB tenure that when you sign this minor league deal, you do have the option to elect free agency.
You might want to do that.
Yeah, on or before, but the same token, I don't know who would pick him up at this point. If you're the team leader in ERA with a 5.5 ERA, that's not a sign.
I got a feeling Pittsburgh would have interest.
Jeez. What a shot from the weeds on Nate on that one.
They haven't had a starting pitcher win a game yet, or win a game, yeah.
You were right.
I think it's the only team in the
So
league.
it's either a loss or no decision?
Pittsburgh is quite literally on this historic run.
Wow.
Sense, yeah.
And an ugly weekend for them as well.
Yeah. Syracuse this week, obviously traveling today, but they're off to a short drive down Interstate 81 to Scranton-Wilkes Barre in Moosic, Pennsylvania to face the Rail Riders. So
They've been really struggling, the Rail Riders.
what's interesting, though, is they took the series against them, though, earlier in the year, the first time they met. So it'll be interesting to see there. And the Rail Riders actually, their pitching's not been exactly great either. So, but that might be a podcast we can do coming up here where we kind of highlight the minor league stuff for each parent club and kind of take a look. Either way, that will wrap it up for us today here on Concrete Jungle. Anything fun coming up during the week for everybody? I know, obviously, birthday for you, Kyle, but
Yeah, no, nothing too fun. Just watching sports and working.
attaboy. Nate?
Emmerich start their playoff series against the Comets tomorrow. Can't complain with that. But one more thing going back to the Red Wings game. My big takeaway is something that's not baseball related. That new Genesee Brewery Pineapple Kolsch.
Yes. Yep.
Very good. And I advise anybody, on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon.
Of legal age.
Legal age, of course. Go there.
I
Sun
do not-
setting. It's a beautiful spot to kind of enjoy their end of your week, unwind.
Concrete Jungle does not
couple
endorse
Kolsch's.
underage drinking,
Well, that's for sure.
despite us being a Little League podcast. Anyway, yeah, I definitely agree with you, Nate. I think I'm in the minority, but I do think it's actually better than the Ruby Red. But I will.
Ooh, Nate's not so sure.
I'll go hide behind a concrete barrier for the onslaught that will be coming for my hot take there. Concrete Jungle, you can find us anytime on YouTube to catch up and watch there or listen, as well as Anchor and Spotify. We go every Monday and Thursday at roughly hour or about 11 o'clock live. So until Thursday, for Kyle Evans, Nate Sharman, coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios, north floor of the North Park building. Take care. We'll see you Thursday.